Just admit people into the room.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Respected friends and elders, the reality of the world that we live in today is that it is a very selfish world. Whether it's the pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, whatever it may be, the reality is that it is a very selfish world. And oftentimes we only think about ourselves. Oftentimes all of us as humanity, as people, we think about ourselves only. Right? So when there's an issue, when there's a crisis, when there's a shortage of toilet paper or there's a shortage of rice, what do? We take all of them, right? We take 10 bags. Why? Because I want to make sure my family and we are well taken care of for the next foreseeable future, right? I mean, whether other people have or not, it doesn't matter to me. Why? Because I need to make sure that I and my family, we have it. Right? Of course, it's important to think about yourself. It's important to think about your family, but the fact is that it's also important to think about humanity at large. The books of fiqh actually discuss not to hoard, mentions it about not hoarding, and it being impermissible to take things beyond necessity. Right? At least the dislike of that is mentioned in the books of fiqh and in Sharia, that you should not take more than what you need. Right? So this all stems down to a singular point. It comes down to this one aspect or the lack of this one characteristic, and that is the characteristic of qana'ah, which is contentment. Not being content with the decree of Allah Ta'ala, not being content with whatever Allah Ta'ala has given us. Unfortunately, that arises from many different issues. Right? Unfortunately, we find many different issues because of lack of contentment, unfortunately. Right? And so many of us, alhamdulillah, we have our jobs, we have our families, we have everything else. But the fact is that having this contentment, being content and happy with whatever Allah Ta'ala has given us, this is a very important characteristic that we must all develop. That alhamdulillah, whatever Allah Ta'ala has given us, I am happy with that. I'm pleased with whatever Allah Ta'ala has given me, and I don't want to be selfish and take away from others and only think about myself. We find that many people, of course, all of us, most of us rather, we are striving for success. Most of us, if not all of us, we want to be successful, we want to do well, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be successful. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be rich. Many people, they think that being rich is contrary to Islam. That is not the case. Rather, Islam encourages being successful. Right? As the most common dua of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, "Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah." That Allah Ta'ala make us successful, or Allah Ta'ala give us the good in this world and give us good in the akhirah. This is very important. But along with that, along with wanting to be successful, the issue arises when we allow wealth, when we allow money to enter our hearts. What does that mean? What does it mean to allow money to enter our hearts? It means that money consumes us. Wealth consumes us. That our entire lives are spent chasing money. And that's the issue. The issue is when we're chasing money and our entire life revolves around money. So we are not able to give time for families. We are not able to devote ourselves to Allah Ta'ala. When it comes to the fara'id, when it comes to the obligations, whether it's salah, whether it's fasting and so on, we forego those, unfortunately. That's the issue. The issue is when money comes into our hearts, that's when we have a big problem. And so every single one of us, whatever Allah Ta'ala has blessed us with, we need to be grateful to Allah Ta'ala. As I mentioned, that it's natural to want to be successful, but the problem is when money comes into your heart. There's a very apt hadith. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, لو أن لابن آدم واديا من ذهب أحب أن يكون له واديا. He said that if Bani Adam, the children of Adam, had 2 mountains of gold, other narrations suggest 2 mountains of some money. Imagine having mountains of gold or mountains of, whatever amount of money it is. He said, أَحَبَّ أَن يَكُونَ لَهُ وَادِيًا. He would wish that he had another mountain. He would want another mountain of gold. Meaning that Bani Adam will never be satisfied. In the sense that no matter how much money you have, if you're the billionaire, imagine having $1 billion, right? I mean, you have so much money. But despite that, what happens? You're constantly, they're still working. They're still working, they're still spending, so much time. And they say what? We love working. But the fact is they love money. That's the reality. Imagine, right? Imagine having so much money, but still not being content and wanting to earn more and more and more. So the reality is that Bani Adam will never be satisfied. And Rasulullah said, وَلَن يَمْلَأَ فَاهُ إِلَّا التُّرَابُ. Nothing will satiate, nothing will satisfy the thirst and the greed of Bani Adam except for dirt. Meaning once that person is in the dirt, that's the only time they will be satisfied. And that's the only time that they will no longer greed for other things. So every single one of us, we should be content with whatever Allah Ta'ala has given us. So just because if Allah Ta'ala has given us one mountain, be happy with your one mountain. Be happy with your one job. So many people, right? I mean, throughout the pandemic, so many people, mashallah, they did one job, two jobs, three jobs, multiple jobs, right? I know many people personally that they did multiple jobs. Just to what? It's not that they needed it. It's not that they need it, but rather they want it. And so they're obviously foregoing their family rights, they're foregoing many other things. It's impossible to maintain everyone's rights and those multiple jobs. Of course, if someone needs to do multiple jobs to make ends meet, that's different. But we're talking about people who just want to do it, who just want to read behind dunya. That's not correct. The ayah, Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة. Allah Ta'ala said that the one who does good deeds, right, the one who does good deeds, whether man or woman, and while they're a believer, فلنحيينه حياة طيبة. We will give them a حياة طيبة. We'll give them a good life. So what does it mean to have a good life? The scholars, he quotes Ali radiallahu anhu, he quotes Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he quotes other Sahaba to say that a good life is a content life. A good life is a content life, meaning you are happy with whatever Allah Ta'ala is giving you. That's a good life. Whether it's little or a lot, whether Allah Ta'ala has blessed you with multiple mountains or Allah Ta'ala has blessed you with no mountain. The fact is that you must be grateful to Allah Ta'ala, you must be content to Allah Ta'ala. That Allah Ta'ala, we should say Alhamdulillah for every single thing that we have. Right? The fact is that many people have much less than we do. There's a beautiful hadith which explains this. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, it's one of my favorite hadith. I've probably mentioned it many times. He says, من أصبح منكم معاف في جسده آمنا في سبه عند وقوت يومه فكأنما حيزت له الدنيا. He says that the one amongst you who wakes up in the morning, healthy, safe, and they have one day's worth of food. It's as if the entire world is presented before you. Again, you wake up in the morning, healthy and safe, and you have one day's worth of food. It's as if the entire world is presented before you. So this is how you and I, we must look at it. That Alhamdulillah, we are healthy, Alhamdulillah, we are safe, Alhamdulillah, we have one day's worth of food. So, must be grateful to Allah Ta'ala. I have all of these opportunities. Everything is before me. Everything is before me. So this is the important, right? What's important is being content with whatever Allah Ta'ala has given us. In a beautiful hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, Tuba liman hudiya ila Islam. He says, glad tidings be to those people who are guided towards Islam. وَكَانَ عَيْشُهُ كَفَافًا وَقَنَعًا. And his life is sufficing, meaning he lives a life which suffices him. At the same time, he's content with that life. Again, glad tidings be to those people who are guided towards Islam and they have a life which is sufficient for them. Meaning they don't have to go and beg. That's the reality. They don't have to go and beg. And at the same time, they're content with that. Glad tidings be to these people. So this is most of us, alhamdulillah. Most of us, alhamdulillah, we're guided towards Islam, alhamdulillah. And then, alhamdulillah, we are given a decent job, alhamdulillah. And now it's important for us to be content. to Allah Ta'ala. Alhamdulillah, thank you Allah for everything that you've given us, and I'm happy with it. Again, this doesn't mean that you can't aim for success. This doesn't mean that you can't aim to be rich. But at the same time, don't allow it to enter your hearts, and don't allow it to intercede in between you and your amal, in between you and your devotion to Allah Ta'ala, your devotion to your family. This should not come in between any of that. In another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, very similar hadith, it says, "Qad aflaha man aslam." The one who is truly successful is the one who accepts Islam. وَرُزِقَ كَفَافًا. He is given enough sustenance. He is given enough sustenance. وَقَنَّعَهُ اللَّهُ بِمَا آتَى. And Allah Ta'ala gave him the ability to be content with whatever Allah Ta'ala gave him. Remember that every single thing that we have is from Allah Ta'ala. This is the reality. That every single thing, every single dollar, every single house, every single car, every single breath that we have is from Allah Ta'ala. So we must be grateful to Allah Ta'ala for all of these things. That alhamdulillah, we have all of these things. And so be content. Moving on, Sa'ad ibn Waqqas, he was once speaking to his son. And this is very important, that all of us, we should speak to our children in a nice way, constantly advising them in a nice way. Don't bother them, of course, but at the same time, giving them advice from a father, it's much different. It's very important. It's very important that a father gives advice to his son. So Sa'ad radiallahu anhu, he spoke to his son. He said, Ya bunay, idha talabta shay'an. He said, oh my son, oh my beloved son, when you want something, fatlubhu bil qana'a. He says, you should seek it through contentment. You should want it through qana'a. What does that mean? That you want something bad, but you ask yourself, do I really need this thing? Or do I just want it because everyone else has it? Do I just want it because it'll give me some credibility, some street cred or whatever else it may be? Do I want these pair of shoes because it makes it's sustainable? Or do I want it just to look good or to think that I'm better than other people? Do I want this watch for this reason or the other reason? Do I want this house to consider myself better than others, or to suffice my needs and my family's needs? These are the questions that we need to ask ourselves. That am I tatlubu bil qana'ah? Sa'ad al-Qawmi, he says that you seek it through qana'ah. At the same time, فَإِنْ لَمْ يَكُنْ لَكَ قَنَاعَةٌ فَلَيْسَ يُغْنِيكَ مَالٌ. Sa'ad al-Qawmi, he says that if you don't have contentment, then no amount of money will make you rich. If you don't have money, if you don't have qana'ah, no amount of money will make you rich. Meaning you'll constantly be wanting more and more and more. So every single one of us, whatever we have, we should be grateful to Allah Ta'ala for that. The fact is, right, alhamdulillah, we live in this country, right? Just living in this country alone, this is a great blessing of Allah Ta'ala, in the sense that we have many opportunities, alhamdulillah, right? As opposed to many others in many different parts of the world. Us, even minimum wage is considered a wealthy salary in many other countries. And of course, the expenses are also more. It doesn't mean that just because you're living here, you have a lot of money. But of course, this means that you have more opportunities. Living here, you have many more opportunities. So alhamdulillah, we have a lot of these opportunities. And living in this county, especially, living in Loudoun County, right? I mean, this is the richest county in the entire United States. And so therefore, it's a responsibility from us. But what happens is many of us, we see these things, and we live in Loudoun County. We look around, and you see massive houses, you see many people making large amounts of money. And sometimes we think to ourselves that, you know what, I wish, I want to be like them. I want to make money and so on. The fact is that, that should not come to our minds. Rather, in the time of Musa alayhi salam, Qarun, when the people at that time of Musa alayhi salam, when they would see Qarun, Allah Ta'ala speaks about Qarun in the Quran. Allah Ta'ala speaks about him, and he mentions that the keys to the treasures of Qarun were so much and so heavy that a group of men needed to pick up just those keys. Can you imagine how much money he had? And so how many rooms full of money probably he had, right? That he needed multiple people to carry his keys only. And so Allah Ta'ala mentions it, right? That people around him, the foolish people around him, they would say, oh, look at Qarun. We wish we could be like Qarun. We wish we could have the same money as Qarun. And the smart individuals would say, no. We don't want to be like Qarun. Instead, we want to be successful, good Muslims. This is what's important. So, Going back, living in this opulent society, in this society that is filled with money, oftentimes we look at others, whereas we should not be looking at others. In a hadith, beautiful hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, "Unzuru ila man huwa asfala minkum." He says that in terms of dunya, you should always look at those who are less fortunate than you. You should always look at those who are less fortunate than you. Why? If you do this, if you look at people who are more fortunate, the people who have more money, فهو أجدر أن لا تزدروا نعمة الله عليكم كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. He said that if you do this, it might be that you are ungrateful to Allah Ta'ala for the blessings that Allah Ta'ala has given to you. When you look at others, you say, oh man, look at this guy. He's a multi-millionaire, for example. And subhanAllah, the fact is that you will not appreciate the blessings that Allah Ta'ala has given us. Or Allah Ta'ala has given you. You know, subhanAllah, there's a great comparison. It's a picture, right? But it's a good point for us, a good lesson for all of us. Right? You find the people who are driving cars, right? Or rather, the person who's driving a car is always looking at the next person's car, or that person is looking at the next person's car. That look at this person, his car is so much nicer. And then you find someone who's on their bike looking at the person in the car, saying, "Oh wow, I wish I had a car." The person who's walking, he's looking at the person on the bike, saying, "Oh, I wish I had a bike." The person who has no feet or they're on a wheelchair, they're looking at the person with feet or legs. You say, "I wish I had legs. I wish I had functioning feet." And so that's the reality of life, that there will always be someone who's doing better than us, right? And there's only so much that we can attain through halal means. At some point or another, you'll have to go towards haram means. If you want to make so much money, you have to go towards haram. And that's not something we should be willing to do. Instead, we should be content with whatever Allah Ta'ala has given us. Again, there's nothing wrong with being successful. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be rich, so long as it doesn't contradict Islam, so long as it doesn't come in between you and your family, so long as it doesn't come between you and your religion. This is the most important thing. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "ليس الغنى عن كثرة العرض ولكن الغنى غنى النفس." He says that richness or affluency is not by having a lot of things. It's not by amassing so many different things. It's not by having the latest iPhones. It's not by having the latest watches or the latest cars or the biggest houses. But affluency is, or being rich is, being content with it inside your own heart. That whatever I have, alhamdulillah for that. Alhamdulillah for that. There are many, many, many more people who have much less than I do. So this is the reality. This is how you and I must think. That we must be content and we must avoid amassing wealth just to hoard that money. And we look at the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would often make this dua. Allahumma inni as'aluka al-huda wal-tuqa wal-'afafa wal-ghina. Very famous dua that, oh Allah, I seek from you al-huda. Firstly, I seek guidance from you. Imagine Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is asking for guidance. Someone makes dua for us. May Allah Ta'ala guide you. What happened? You get offended. Why? What did I do wrong? Why do I need to be guided? The fact is, it's a good dua. That may Allah Ta'ala guide you. So we should, if someone says it in a negative way, of course, that's, I mean, subhanAllah, many people, they have underlying reasons for what they say. Even in their du'as, they're making bad dua. Anyway, so he says that Allah Ta'ala guide me. Allahumma inni as'aluka al-huda wa tuqa. Allah Ta'ala grant me Allah consciousness. Allow me to be conscious of you at all times. This is very important, that we're always conscious of Allah Ta'ala. That whether someone is watching us or not watching us, the fact is that Allah Ta'ala is watching us. It's a very beautiful story. So I won't mention it, but another thing, but being conscious of Allah Ta'ala, right? And being Allah Ta'ala grant me afaf, meaning grant me the ability to refrain from others, refrain from having to ask from others. Unfortunately, you know, subhanAllah, it's sad. It's sad that it's becoming a reality. That nowadays, you know, now someone goes through an issue and they don't really need the money. But what happens? They're very quick to go on GoFundMe. They're very quick to go on and on so many different platforms. But it's not that they need it, or it's not that they can't work. But the fact is that they become dependent on that, dependent on other people's assistance. Yes, there are some people who genuinely need it. And those people, of course, we should help out. But there are many others who don't need it, right? They just want it. So therefore, we should not be those people who just want more, who just want, who are greedy for more. But rather, we should be people who are content with whatever Allah Ta'ala has given us. This concept of begging in Islam is a very deplorable action. And it's something that Rasulullah speaks about. Once you open that door is never closed. In the hadith is mentioned that once you open the door for begging, Allah Ta'ala will not close that door of begging. So as much as possible, we should be independent. As much as possible, we should try to refrain from whatever other people have. And that's an entirely different topic which I will discuss today. But nonetheless, he said that, "Oh Allah, grant me guidance. Oh Allah, grant me Allah consciousness. Oh Allah, grant me the ability to refrain from others. And wal ghina, and Allah Ta'ala grant me contentment." These are very, very important characteristics. And so Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he led by example. He would ask this dua. There's another very scary but amazing dua that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to make. We know the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we know how he lived his life. We know that for many days, for weeks on end, there would be no food in the house of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. There would be nothing cooked on the stove of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We know this. We know the lifestyle he led. Why did he lead this lifestyle? Was he forced to lead it? No. He was not forced to lead that lifestyle. He could have led a very affluent lifestyle. He could have led a life full of all of the luxuries. Allah Ta'ala offered it to him. Allah Ta'ala offered him whatever he wanted. He could have had whatever he wanted, but he chose that life. He chose to live a less affluent life. He chose to live a very content, a very simple lifestyle. And so you would find that he barely had clothes. He barely had food. And he had a lot of money, but he would donate all of it. He would give it all away. Even on his deathbed, he made sure that he passed away with no money. He made sure that whatever he had in his, at home or whatever, was all donated, was all given away. Think about it. How can we live that lifestyle? There's such a scary dua. Rasulullah, such a beautiful and scary dua. Rasulullah used to make this dua that Allahumma ja'al rizqa ala Muhammadin quta. Oh Allah Ta'ala, grant the sustenance of the family of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam just sufficient. Grant them enough sustenance. That's it. Many of us, we ask Allah Ta'ala, oh Allah, give me the best house. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with Allah Ta'ala asking Allah Ta'ala these things, right? You should ask Allah Ta'ala for a nice house, for a nice car, and so on. You should ask Allah Ta'ala. But can you imagine, this is the dua that Rasulullah is making for his family. If someone made that dua for me or my family, we take it as offensive. Like, just sufficing? Why not more? But this was the dua that Nabi made for his family, that Allah Ta'ala make the rizq of Al Muhammad sufficient, just enough, just enough. And so therefore all of us, every single one of us, we should think that whatever money Allah Ta'ala has given us, whatever Allah Ta'ala has given us, we should be grateful to Allah Ta'ala, be content with all of these things. Don't look at other people. In terms of dunya, we always look at those people who are less fortunate. But in terms of deen, we should look at those people who are more fortunate, those people who are given more. This person is praying, sometimes we do the complete opposite, right? I do the complete opposite. Right? When it comes to salah, at least I'm praying one salah. At least I'm praying some salawat. Look at this person. He doesn't even pray at all. She doesn't pray at all. She doesn't wear the hijab. He doesn't do this. And when it comes to money, look at that person, how can I make more like them? Or how can I be like them, and so on. Whereas it should be the opposite. That when it comes to money, we look at those people who are less fortunate. That look at all of these people. There are many of us who have family members, right? Just think about it yourself. Many of us have family members who are much less fortunate than we are. And it's important that we actually take care of them. In a hadith, Rasulullah he says that the upper hand is better than the lower hand. Right? Meaning the giving hand is better than the receiving hand. Meaning you should give and try not to receive. Try to give more and receive less. And then he said, you should start with those who are closest to you. Start with your family. Right? Make sure your family is well taken care of. It should not be that we're buying multi-million-dollar properties. It should not be that we're buying $100,000 car and our families are struggling. that our families are zakat eligible. It should not be like this. This happens this very frequently. I hear this. That my cousin, my brother sometimes, my sister sometimes, if they're struggling, can I give zakat to them? Yes, technically you can. Technically you can give zakat to your brother and sister. But it shouldn't reach that stage. It shouldn't reach that stage that they're in need of zakat. Instead, we should try to help them. Help your family members. If Allah Ta'ala has blessed you, you bless other people. And I mentioned about the virtues of sadaqah. I mentioned so many times. I mentioned in one lecture, I mentioned almost like 14, 15 virtues of just giving sadaqah. I remember, and there's so much more details. Anyways, moving on, right? So Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would say, begin with your family. The best form of charity is that money that you give after looking after your own family or after being considerate of your own family. The scholars under this hadith, they speak about, and this doesn't apply to us, we never even think about this, right? But the scholars under this hadith, they speak about donating all of your money in charity. Is it permissible or not? So many scholars say, no, it's not permissible to donate all of your money in charity. Why? Because then you won't have anything for yourself or your family. Then you'll have to be forced to beg. But we don't think like that. We don't think about donating all of our money. We don't think like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Instead, we think, how can I save more money? One of the signs of Qiyamah is what? That people will take zakat like a tax. They'll consider zakat like a tax. How can I find the loopholes to avoid as much money, giving as much money as possible? This should never be the case. This is one of the signs of Qiyamah, that people will take zakat like a tax. It's not a tax. Tax is 20, 40%. Zakat is only 2.5%. It's not a tax. It's a blessing of Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala has given us so much, 100% of our money. Give 2.5% of the excess money. It's a blessing of Allah Ta'ala that we're able to give zakat. Not on the receiving end of zakat, but on the giving end of zakat. It's a blessing of Allah Ta'ala. Anyways, I'll conclude on this. One hadith. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said, Ya ayyuhan nas, ayyuhan nas. Oh humanity, remember this very well. He says that none of you will pass away until Allah Ta'ala completes the amount of money that they will receive. Until they receive the full amount. There's an amount of money that you will get. You will not get a single penny more than that. So no matter how much you work, some people they work like 60, 70 hours a week, but you'll still get, at the end of the day, you'll get a fixed amount. That's the amount that you'll get. And you will not get more than that. That's the amount that you'll get. And Allah Ta'ala will not allow you to die until you receive that full amount. So there's no need for you to run behind the dunya. Work enough that allows you to look after yourself and your family, leave the rest. Make sure you fulfill your obligations to Allah Ta'ala. Make sure you fulfill your obligations to your family, and leave the rest. I wanted to mention this one hadith, but I don't have time. But there's one beautiful hadith where Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he mentions 5 beautiful advices. He says that he says, be happy with whatever Allah Ta'ala has given you. You will be the richest of people. He gives 5 advices. This is one of the 5 advices, that be happy with whatever Allah Ta'ala has given you. You will be the richest of people. No one will be able to take away the richness of your heart, the affluence of your heart. Alhamdulillah, whatever Allah Ta'ala has given me, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with whatever Allah Ta'ala has given me. Beyond that, like Allah Ta'ala gives you more, what do? Now I'm going to go buy a more expensive car. I'm going to go buy a bigger house. No. Why don't you spend more? Give more to charity. Give more to your family. Right? Take care of the people around you. Take care of the orphans. Take care of the masjid. Take care of the madaris and so on. You look after others. Because Allah Ta'ala gives you more, doesn't mean that you keep buying more. That I'm just going to keep hoarding more. No. Instead, I will be selfless. I will look after the others. Just as Allah Ta'ala is looking after us, we look after others. As I mentioned, we live in a very beautiful community, alhamdulillah. We live in a wonderful community, wonderful area, alhamdulillah. This is a responsibility. Be grateful to Allah Ta'ala. Use whatever Allah Ta'ala has given you in the best of manners. Don't be selfish. Instead, be selfless. Allah Ta'ala give you
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.